Hello, this is Humphrey again with routergods, and this is going to be a quick review of my troubleshooting challenge that I took at Cisco Live. INE held this troubleshooting challenge where you had to answer 10 troubleshooting tickets in 2 hours, simulating what you would get in the CCIE lab. It was pretty nice because we got to practice with their topology, which is something like 30-something routers and switches. They had pretty nice laptops. The resolution was set fairly well, and we had a chance to win an iPad. So what you had to do is get the highest score for each session. There were 2 sessions every day. They had them on Tuesday and Wednesday, and at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. I took the Wednesday at 2 p.m. and I was told that the day before the highest score was 11 points, 11 out of 22 points, and the guy was actually already a CCIE. So that will show you the difficulty. In my session, I got 5 out of 22 points, which is pretty bad. I definitely would have failed if that had been the real CCIE test. But 5 out of 22 points for that session was the top score, and I ended up winning an iPad 3, 16 gigabytes. So, hey, pretty nice. Thanks, INE. So this is going to be a quick review of what happened. Now, I wasn't on my best game, wasn't on my A game that day because I hadn't slept that much. I think I got 3 hours of sleep. Pretty typical for a convention because, as you know, if you've been to conventions, your sleep just gets all out of whack because you're at the convention floor for most of the day, and then you have parties at night, and you go out on the town, San Diego, gas lamp area. So, so definitely not enough sleep. And I hadn't eaten all day, so my stomach was growling while I was on the consoles, and it was a pretty bad thing. But I powered through it. My strategy going into it was to get 1 ticket, 1 out of 10 tickets, just to get on the scoreboard. I really did not want 0 points. Didn't want the goose eggs. But what was interesting was there was 8 to 9 people who took the troubleshooting challenge in my section, and 2 to 3 of them left early. One guy next to me, he was like, the heck with this, I have a session to go to, and he clicked grade and he got 0 points. Another guy left pretty early, maybe about 45 minutes later, and so people were kind of dropping left and right. So definitely props to the people who stayed. What do you have to lose? It's not like you're spending money or anything. So time flies. 2 hours seems like a long time for 10 tickets, but it really flies. You waste about 5 to 10 minutes at the start because you're just looking at this topology going, well, what the hell's going on? So you kind of get your bearings straight at around the 7 to 8 minute mark and go, okay, maybe I should start doing something. But by the end of the 2 hours, you feel like you've been through war because your brain's been constantly thinking for the entire 2 hours. You've been slamming away on the keyboard. And it is very surprising how fast 2 hours flies by. So how was the interface? Well, they had very nice ThinkPad laptops, and the resolution was set up fairly well. I think it was probably at 1920 by 1080, definitely higher than what you would expect. Huge topology, 30-something routers and switches, and you open it up in Firefox. You click on a router, click on a device, and a console window comes up. They're all separate console windows. They're not tabbed or anything. So eventually what's going to happen is you're going to have a bunch of console windows all over the place. And that's kind of what I saw. After 2 or 3 tickets, you're kind of forgetting to close the previous console windows. And now you have 10 windows up. And then, it's not that difficult to close them, but it can get kind of annoying. All right, so let's take a look at our topology here that I dealt with at the INE Troubleshooting Lab Challenge. This is a screenshot that I took after my time expired. So I'm going to have to do a lot of scrolling because Camtasia is recording at 1280 by 720, and this screenshot is it looks like 1920 by 1080. So a lot of scrolling. But as you can see, what it is I have the topology window open right here. And this is just half of it because there's more up here that's obscured by console windows. But here's the bottom half of the topology. You could see that we've got OSPF and BGP, multiple BGP autonomous systems. We've got EIGRP in the lonely bottom right corner. We've got a very a small frame relay network down here. This was actually more evil than I expected because R18 looks to be the hub here, but actually what was happening is I think the frame relay switch was actually done on R28. So that was something I didn't expect. But you know, heck, they could throw anything at you. Here, this is MPLS. We've got got some other evil stuff there, but very, very large topology. You could see that I had a lot of console windows open because I was troubleshooting a BGP problem, I think. And I was kind of flailing at this point because time was running out, and I was going, what the heck was going on? And I think this particular ticket was, it was ping from R13 over here over to, I think, the .130 interface of R26. I think that was the ticket. And what was happening was all the traffic was going through autonomous system 65.111, so going through the top route here. And what you had to do is get it through the bottom, the bottom autonomous system. And just everything that I was doing, I was doing Hail Marys, I was doing everything, doing static routes, and just trying to get this sucker to go through the bottom link, and I couldn't do it. So, definitely more studying needed on that one. But you can see all these windows open kind of towards the end. It's kind of funny. Let's take a look at the full topology here. This is the full deal. So you can see up here we've got another BGP autonomous system, another one here. We've got switches in there, got OSPF. We've got our, here we've got RIP. Look at that. Good old-fashioned RIP is awesome. That control plane policing problem that I talked about, that was on R2, and it was be able to telnet to fast00 on R2 from, I think it was either R6 or R22, one of these two. And what was happening was the telnet would be hitting fast01, and it would be hitting the wrong interface because telnet was only accepted from fast00 because they had a control plane management interface fast00 on that one. And I knew what the problem was. I knew, knowing what the problem is and knowing how to fix it are two different things, but at least I knew what the problem was. This is a pretty large topology here. What I'm going to try to do is see if I can simulate this in GNS3, if I can simulate most of it, but we'll see about that. I felt that while I could have used more screen real estate, having a 1920 by 1080 screen was pretty good, pretty decent. Definitely enough space, as you can see on the screen right now, for the topology, for a couple console windows, 2 or 3 console windows, and then the timer in the bottom right corner. That's kind of how I did it. Also, what I did is I put a notepad window kind of in the upper right corner, and as I read the tickets, I would copy the text of the ticket and what they wanted. So let's say it asked for ping from router 1 to router 6, and make sure this happens. I would copy that text to the notepad window, and then I wouldn't go back to the ticket text. I had it in a different tab, so I wouldn't need to do that. I would just look in the notepad window. So Firefox, there was a huge topology. I talked about that. Now, after a while, you just kind of, I don't know how to describe it, but after about the second or third ticket, you get kind of in the zone and you ignore everything. But what was kind of interesting was in the early part of the challenge, we were hearing this just annoying music coming from somewhere. We thought that it was coming from the ceiling. We were at the Hard Rock, and maybe the Hard Rock hotel was pumping in music through the ceiling, or perhaps through the table or something, and it was just bugging the hell out of us because we're all stressed trying to pass this challenge, and we're hearing this horrible music. It wasn't classical music, it wasn't rock music. I can't really describe it. It's just the most god-awful music on the face of the earth. There was a cell phone next to me, and someone thought, I think I may have said something, and maybe the music is coming from the cell phone, and the guy who owned the cell phone said that it wasn't coming from the cell phone. So we kind of powered through it and go, okay, crap, we'll just live with the music coming from the ceiling or from the table. he left to go to the bathroom, and then I picked up his cell phone and put it to my ear, and it turned out the music was coming from his phone. So kind of annoying, and then the INE guys took it and put it on another table. What was really funny is 5 minutes after that, everything's quiet, we're all zoned in, and then someone walking across the street, the baby's crying really loud, and just all of us started laughing because it just kind of broke the tension a little bit. Difficulty level, pretty difficult. I mean, when a guy who's already a CCIE gets 11 out of 22, that should tell you how difficult it is. I think I mentioned it. There was a guy who had taken the CCIE lab 2 or 3 times before in my section, and he said the questions that he was seeing were much tougher than what he saw in the actual lab. So INE definitely has a reputation for making their workbooks and tickets and mock labs and everything much more tougher than real life. But I have the sense that they were not necessarily tricky in terms of if you had practiced a lot, if you had labbed a lot and knew the technologies and actually studied, it would actually be fairly okay to kind of power through the lab. The main thing was dividing up the topology to where you can solve the ticket by not going to every router in the topology. So as you're looking at this problem, like ping from R1 to R6, right? You start at the ends, you run a ping, it doesn't ping. Okay, can you ping from somewhere else? Can you ping somewhere closer? Move in on your topology, and then kind of segment your network to see what could be the problem. And what I found was that in my studies, I've been studying a long time. I've been studying for several years for this, but really I've only gotten really serious in the last 6 months, 6 to 8 months or so. I could tell where the problem was, and I could tell kind of what the problem was. Kind of like, okay, a route's not getting into BGP, or OSPF is picking this route, or there was one question about telnetting into a router. But what was happening was the telnet was getting killed because control plane policing. They had a management interface set up on fast00, and you had to kind of get around that problem. So I knew what the problem was, but the restriction on that was you couldn't touch router 2, which was where the control plane configuration was set up. So you had to actually change the other router configuration. So knowing what the problem was for me wasn't actually difficult. It was finding the solution to get past that. But yeah, I think if you had been studying hardcore for about a year, I think that it wouldn't have been too difficult to get 8 points or more on this test. Getting used to the topology. Topology is huge. One of the things that I got tripped up on was kind of looking at the topology, and early on I would be on the wrong VLAN. I'd be looking on the wrong VLAN, and I'd configure an IP address on it and figured out that, okay, I wasn't supposed to be on VLAN 313, I was supposed to be on VLAN 13 or something like that. So that was kind of a difficult thing. On this topology, as you can see on the screen, there are multiple switch 3s. There are switch 3s on the right side, switch 3s on the left side, and you kind of have to figure out by looking at the IP addresses in the ticket which switch 3 you're looking at. You could also see in the topology there is some evil MPLS in the middle. I think I got that question right because it was routes aren't getting into OSPF or something like that. So MPLS on the bottom, there's frame relay. That was an interesting question. A couple questions down there and so you can see there's BGP mixed in with OSPF. There's a little bit of RIP in the upper left-hand corner. But you can see if you don't know your BGP or MPLS, you're dead. You're completely dead. And this would count for the configuration section of the real lab as well. You don't know BGP, you might as well just quit right there. So types of tickets. Most of the tickets were variations of make the ping go from this router to the interface of this router. Make a telnet go from this router to the interface of this router. So many questions about that. Don't know the exact mix of it, but I think somewhere around 5, maybe 6 questions of that. And what the INE staff explained is that you can set up those questions. So ping from R1 to fast00 R6, let's say. So you can set up that question, and there are almost infinite ways you could make the backend screw that up. Could be a BGP problem, could be an MPLS problem, could be a VLAN problem. Maybe they're on a wrong VLAN. Could be wrong IP addresses. There's lots of ways that you could stop those pings. And so you can ask the question once, and them setting up on the back end, they could make 100 troubleshooting tickets out of that, which is pretty cool. They also explained that the solution to a lot of these problems sometimes doesn't necessarily involve ripping out all of the configuration. In fact, if you do that, you'll probably get the question wrong, just like you would in the regular troubleshooting lab. Now, in terms of just finding out the problem and troubleshooting it itself, sometimes it is a valid tactic to remove all the crap and just see if that ping goes through. See what is causing the problems. Then don't forget to pop it back in and then modify it. And so that's kind of what they're looking for. They're not looking for a guy who just rips stuff out. One example they gave was if an access list is blocking too much, you don't necessarily have to rip the whole access list out. You might be better off adding a line to that part that is blocking the traffic. Other types of tickets, there was a QoS ticket in there that I just completely ignored because I knew I would spend too much time. And that kind of brings me to the strategy. As I said, the goal was, for me personally, I wanted to get one ticket right. One ticket. I didn't want 0 points. I wanted one ticket, and however many points that would give me. So yeah, I just didn't want the embarrassment of 0. And INE, Brian McGahan told all of us that one ticket would actually be better than average, because that's kind of how many people were getting. So if you got 2 tickets, you were above the cut, so to speak. So the strategy, get one ticket. I started off by taking a piece of paper. There was a long pieces of paper that was by each laptop, and I divided it up into 10 squares, kind of like a grid of 10. Numbered it from 1 to 10, and then as I got tickets right, I would put a plus. Weren't many pluses. There was 1, and then if I wasn't sure about a ticket after I fought through it for about 10 minutes, I would put a question mark if I really wasn't sure. If I knew what the problem was, but I just couldn't figure out the solution, I would put a dash by it, and then to remind me, I would put what it was. So one of them I think was OSPF redistribution or something like that. So I put a dash in OSPF redistribution, and I went on to another ticket. And I think that strategy helped me get the 1 or 2 tickets, the 1.5 tickets that I got, because the first 3 tickets I fought through them, and I didn't get them. I was looking through what I thought were the 3 easiest tickets, were the ping and the telnet types, and fought through it for about 10 to 15 minutes each. Didn't get them. And it came to a point where I was thinking, okay, maybe I should stick with this ticket to get it right or move on, right? Because my goal was to get 1 ticket. If I stuck with 1 ticket and got it right, I'd be guaranteed 1 ticket. But I moved on, and thankfully the 4th ticket I looked at, I got it, which is pretty nice. So don't be afraid to move on if things look kind of dicey. Now you may be thinking, okay, ping from one router to the other, that's easy. I mean, there's got to be a couple tickets where the routers are next to each other. Then the topology is really compact. You just have to check 2 routers. No, the routers are never next to each other. The routers will be separated by BGP domains, OSPF. They're going to be far apart, maybe 4 to 5 hops away. So they're never next to each other. It's not that simple. Collapsing the problem set. So yeah, as I explained earlier, if you're trying to go from one router to the other, what you do is start your pings, start your trace routes, and then see where the problem dies. So on one particular problem with MPLS, I knew the problem was inside the MPLS cloud and on one particular router, because all the other routers in that MPLS cloud were getting the correct routes. And so I just isolated on that particular router, and I forgot what I did, but somehow I got the routes floating through and the trace route and the ping started going through. So that was pretty good. As I said, that was the fourth ticket after being disappointed on the first 3 tickets. So Screwups. Where did I screw up? I screwed up a lot, actually. As I said, I was on the wrong VLAN, so figuring out which VLAN you're on. Telnetted into the wrong router. So one of the questions, as I said, was getting your telnets to go from one router to the other router. And they had to go through, the telnets were going into interface fast 01, I believe. And that router 2 had a control plane management interface set to only accept telnets from fast 00. Okay. But you can't change router 2. You can't touch router 2. Okay. So in the process of troubleshooting, I was going around into that section of the topology and telnetting into router 2 and router 4, just to see which ones could telnet in. And I forgot that I was telnetted from one router to the other. So I think I was on router 6, telnetted in router 4. And you know, when you telnet from one router to the other, the prompt changes. So even though my console window said router 6 at the top, in the prompt it said router 4. Okay, not too bad. But as I moved on to the ticket, I completely forgot what I did 2 minutes before. And I was actually about to raise my hand and say, hey, when you click on this router 6, it takes me to router 4. You guys have a screw up here. And then, but there was kind of a little voice in your head that says, don't raise your hand. It's probably something else. So I closed the console window, clicked on router 6, and it still came up as router 4. And that, after about 5 minutes of messing around, I was like, man, this sucks. And then just by accident, I hit Control-Shift-6-X and got out of there and go, oh, I'm a dummy. I was telnetted in there, wasted about 10 to 15 minutes on that. And, hey, lesson learned. Just make sure you're kind of really aware of where you are and what you're doing, because you're not going to remember what you did 10 minutes ago. And I think that's an important point, because you're stressed out, you're trying to fix a problem, you're so deep into this troubleshooting that you have tunnel vision, and you forgot you were telnetted into something. Would have been nice if maybe I had put in my notepad window, like, you're telnetted from router 6 to router 4 or something like that. So I think that's pretty much it for my review. It's a great experience, great topology, lots of stuff they could throw at you. They say they're going to be beta testing these labs in the coming weeks. I think they're ready. I think the main issue is trying to set up the telnet to hook into the web browser, because what they had was everything was on the laptop, and they were running a VMware image of I think it was Windows XP with Firefox full screen, and so they're able to control that. And when you see the web page of the topology, when you click on it, it's they can control the links on that. When you're doing it online, just through the internet, they're kind of debating whether they want to give you the actual IP and port number, the rack name and the port number, or if it's going to be some type of virtualized setup where you RDP or VNC into a remote desktop and then go from there. So they're kind of working out the final details of that. But for the most part, it works out. It didn't crash on me. Little bit of slowness, but I'm pretty sure that was because the Hard Rock wireless just sucked, because all of us were on our console windows. All of us had like multiple console windows opened up. So that was 99% the Hard Rock's fault on that one. But yeah, stay tuned for those troubleshooting labs that will be popping up from INE in the next coming weeks. Highly recommend them. And another thing about doing it is you really figure out where you need help. I need help on everything, so it tells me that. But like QoS, I completely skipped the QoS question because I knew it was like, okay, hadn't studied QoS, just skip it. Don't even waste time on it. And so obviously, that can't happen going into the real lab. MPLS, pretty good on that. The BGP stuff, definitely need to hit that a little bit more. But yeah, taking these labs, doing the troubleshooting really shows you where you are weak on. And a lot of people, I think most of the people failing the lab right now are failing the troubleshooting section. So definitely something to practice on. All right, so thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. My name's Humphrey with routergods. Talk to you later.